What's up everyone, Soldier First Class here, and today's mission, we're going to discuss 5 gameplay improvements that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 needs to make. Now, I've been asked to do this video a lot, so I thought it was finally time to get the ball rolling on more Part 2 content now that I'm back to Final Fantasy VII Remake content as a whole. The combat and gameplay of Part 1 were incredible and definitely built a strong base, but now that future games are going to potentially be more open in structure, I think there's definitely some things myself and the fans want to see improved. We'll be going over my top 5 wish list, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments section below. Keep in mind, this is in no particular order. Now, I think one of the top things I've seen online and in my comments section is aerial combat. Now, Tifa I thought had the best when it came to the close range fighters, as her moveset was enhanced and expanded with Unbridled Fury. Cloud's aerial combat felt really stale considering it was 3 sword slashes and done. Cloud's multiple fighting stances were really great and added depth to the combat on the ground, but considering Cloud is supposed to be this badass soldier and has the enhancements and combat knowledge, I found his aerial combat a little lacking. I'd love to see them not only improve on his, but look forward to how characters like Red 13 could possibly be impacted by these decisions. Red 13 could jump and attach themselves to enemies, biting and clawing at them. Granted, you could easily say that not every character is fit for aerial combat, and that's a solid argument to make, but if it's going to be a move inside the game, it needs to feel satisfying as one. I've also noticed that the lack of a jump button was more of an issue than I initially noticed. I've recently been playing Remake Part 1 again, and it almost feels too streamlined. By that I mean that there are several times where jumping to get to hidden items or forced climbing and sliding segments would have benefited from just having a jump button. At some points, it almost felt like the game was playing itself. It was hard for me to get used to playing the game again at first because I kept trying to hit the jump button and all it did was open tactical mode or the menu system. So I definitely think as we get more explorable locations, a jump button would definitely do the game wonders in the long run, especially when there's parts like the ascent to the Shinra Tower and Cloud has to use a forced event to get over debris that could easily be cleared by jumping. Except the dolphin. Auto jump the dolphin, please. So this one's kind of a two-parter, because I think faster loadout swapping of materia would be a super beneficial improvement I think Part 2 needs to capitalize on. It was an absolute chore to switch your materia, and the fact that you would constantly be switching who was in your active party all the time made the process even more so. I loved the way materia was handled in the sense that you could equip more materia than you would have in the original game though. It felt like loadouts really mattered in Midgar and the missions that you did there. Although I do think they were headed in the right direction, because when you switch a character's weapon, they ask you if you want to move your materia over to the new weapon, which I felt was a really good addition. And on that note, this is the second part, which I also think more varied materia for your loadouts would be a fantastic addition as well. You'd traverse all over Midgar just to find the same level 1 ice or fire materia every time one popped up on the overworld. While it was cool obtaining new materia like Deadly Dodge, these materia seemed very few and far between. It also kind of defeated the purpose of having it on the overworld because you could just buy as many materia as you wanted from vending machines or from Chadley. Next up, there's a big one for a lot of people, and that's actual weapon loadouts. This also feeds into the materia loadout swapping, but more so has to do with the combat itself. Games like Kingdom Hearts, and a lot of action games for that matter, work on loadout swapping of weapons. With the press of a button, you could switch to the weapon that fits your situation more properly, because when you're inside fights, it's almost like you're pausing a cutscene because they don't give you access to your menu. This means that if you're using a loadout with Barret that has one of his physical weapons, and you're fighting aerial enemies, Barret will need materia to fight. And it's a super slow process to build ATB if you can't physically hit your targets, so it still hinders your ability to use magic. With that being a major mechanic in the combat, weapon loadouts seem like a perfect answer to keep fluidity in combat in all situations. This feature would be especially useful in boss fights such as Hell House or the different flying enemies and bosses in the game. Also, if the chair isn't an unlockable weapon for Aerith, we're gonna have a lost opportunity on our hands. I think my personal final improvement would have to be the use of different characters outside of combat. One of my favorite parts of the game was when I got to control Barret in the Deep Ground Lab, Aerith in Don Corneo's mansion, and Tifa in the Shinra Tower. I would love to see more individual gameplay, or at least allow character swapping to other members of your party outside of combat. I think this would have improved locations like the Collapsed Expressway, where Aerith was tasked with grabbing certain items and materia in the environment, but Cloud was stuck operating the arms. This led to a lot of complaints online about this specific segment of the game. Granted, some of the forced moments had their merit when it came to character building, but from a gameplay perspective, they fell a little short. There's also the part where you go back to Deep Ground with a full group, and you can't break the boxes on the shelves like you did with Barret in his standalone segment. And without the jump button we mentioned earlier, it's extremely difficult to reach them, or almost impossible for the most part, so using Barret would be great for moments like these. It's also super important to break boxes like this, because hard mode takes away items and the major ways to recover MP. Improvements like this could be a good way to make each character feel important for more than just issuing commands to and fighting with. Even the original game featured minor segments where you either controlled Cid or Tifa as the party leader. An honorable mention is the difficulty of Classic Mode for those that want a more controlled combat style but don't want to play the game on easy difficulty. That being said, in a recent interview, Remake co-director Naoki Hamaguchi stated that he's seen the difficulty criticism of Classic Mode, and the team plans to develop the next installment with those players in mind. That spells good things for people that didn't like the full-on action style and wanted a slower combat while still maintaining difficulty. Classic Mode had potential, but there was definitely room for improvement when it came to the fighting mode. Overall, soldiers, those are my 5 gameplay improvements that I think Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 needs to implement to improve on an already super solid foundation. But there's definitely more suggestions out there that you guys can come up with, and I'd love to hear what you think could be improved in the gameplay going forward in the series. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to omnislash that like button. Let me know in the comments section below what improvements you'd like to see brought into Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2's gameplay. Subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell to join the ranks of Soldier today. And for all the latest Final Fantasy VII Remake news, rumors, trailers, and content, I'm Soldier First Class, and I'm on to the next mission. Later, guys.